Today in the show, we're going to spend a little time talking about sunflower herbicides. And when I said a little bit of time, that's really all it's going to take, because there unfortunately are not a lot of labeled herbicides for sunflower weed control.
Here's one of the challenges though, Brian. You say, oh, there aren't so many herbicides. Well, that's fine, but let's talk about the herbicides there are, because they're good choices. How can we make them work? With sunflower, so often I talk to farmers that say, you know, I'm in a dry area of the country and I'm having a challenge making those pre-emerge herbicides work consistently on my farm. So let's talk about some of these pre-choices that we've got and what we can do in no-till and also in dry areas of the country to get the most activity out of them.
All right, you only have a couple choices here. Are you going to use a grass killer? Are you going to use a broadleaf killer? Or are you going to use both? The grass killers, Sonalan and Prowl, are the best ones there. Prowl for no-till. We say Sonalan rather than trifluralin for conventional till because you need every advantage you can get, and Sonalan is better than trifluralin in terms of weed control. So we would encourage you invest the extra money in Sonalan, but if you want to go trifluralin, you can. All those are what we call the yellows: trifluralin, Sonalan, and Prowl. Then you've got Spartan. Well, Spartan is the same thing as Authority that's commonly used in soybeans. That's it. Now, when we talk about all those, they have very long residual. So if you're a sunflower producer in the northern part of the United States, like where we are, and you can see there's snow in the ground now, there was snow in the ground in October, we have very cold soils. I'm perfectly comfortable if you want to put your Prowl out, or your Sonalan or trifluralin, and your Spartan in the fall. You don't even have to wait till spring. If you want the very best activity, the very best control, I'd put it out there way in advance if you have, like Darren said, very dry conditions. So if you're dry and cold, put it out in the fall. Otherwise, put it out a month before planting in the spring, and those products are absolutely going to hold till late in the season still because they have such tremendous residual.
Here's the other issue that I see, Brian, is tillage. If you're doing tillage, don't bury the Spartan. When you put Spartan out on top of the ground, that's fine. It works really well because it's mainly targeting small seeded broadleaves and a little bit of grass control in the top ½ to inch of soil. So if we keep it very concentrated in that top ½ inch or inch, we're going to get the most activity out of it. If we start tilling it under like we're doing with Sonalan, I get a little nervous about that, Brian. Don't get too deep with your tillage if you've got the Spartan out there up front.
Yep, I agree, but I don't get too nervous about it because most people don't do deep tillage anymore. So as long as you're tilling at in the range of 2 to 4 inches deep, the herbicide's going to be roughly half that depth most of the time, so 1 to 2 inches, and it will usually work fine. We have tilled in Authority or Spartan many times over the years, works just fine. But Darren's whole point is just keep it shallow and it will work the best.
All right, so get that pre-emerge herbicide out, then choose the right seed. Now, if you've got a choice of a clear field variety, that could be a really good one for you because you can use Beyond post-emerge. Now, Beyond is a chemistry that we're very familiar with. Really, it's a product that we've been using in other crops as well. It's an ALS chemistry that controls broadleaves and also some grasses. So you can control some grass escapes, but by all means, make sure you have a Sonalan or a Prowl out up front because otherwise you're gonna have too much grass pressure for Beyond to do a very good job. Now, when it comes to those broadleaf weeds, if they're ALS resistant, you're just not gonna get them, but there are quite a few weeds that aren't. So this is a really useful chemistry, and let's face it, you don't really have any other choices. So if you can do a clear field variety, use the Beyond and get most of the weeds under control.
Now, Darren said you don't have any other choices than Clearfield, but you do. Certainly you can go with conventional sunflowers, but you can also use Express Sun sunflowers. So you could spray Express over the top of those sunflowers. But just like Darren said with Beyond, Express is that same type of chemistry. It's in that ALS chemical family. It's what we call the old sulfonyl urea group, and it's just not that great on a lot of weeds. It's certainly not as good as Beyond, and it doesn't have the residual that Beyond does. Now, I will just say this. I don't like the ALS herbicides anymore because we have so much resistance. But to Darren's point, yes, there are certainly still some weeds it will control. It's just when it comes to sunflowers, we have no other herbicide options other than those if you use Clearfield, Beyond. If you use Express Sun, Express. Other than that, there's nothing. That's why we talk so much about get both the yellow and the Spartan down. You have to have fantastic pre-emerge control because post-emerge you have zero choices in conventional sunflowers. Now, Darren also mentioned grass. I'm not too worried about grass control with Beyond because you can throw some clethodim in for $2 to $3 an acre and that will kill all the grass in your field. Just make sure you're spraying that grass when it's relatively small so you preserve maximum yield.
Last thing I'd say, Brian, is with both Express and Beyond, the adjuvants that you put in the tank with them make a huge difference. So make sure you're talking to your agronomist about your specific weather conditions and the specific varieties that you're planting to make sure that you can maximize the performance of those products with the right adjuvants.
Well, adjuvants are important if you want good herbicide control, especially on our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?